Lazy Boy rising 3 5/16. The latest issue of Business Week pointing out the recliner maker has sat through the market's turbulence surprisingly well and still has strong growth. Investors may be able to kick up their feet perhaps once the stock splits 3 for 1 next Tuesday. And in the minus column, Shine Pharmaceutical leveled by a 12 and change on news that the FDA is taking action to seize products made by the company's Steris unit. Pier 1 Imports lost 1 5/16. Second quarter profits coming in at 17 cents a share versus 20 cents a year ago. And M.A. Hanna, this is a rubber and plastics maker, stretching to the downside, losing 1.5 on a disappointing third quarter forecast. And NASDAQ trading, the composite index powering back over 56 points to 1641. For the week, it rose 75.12 points. Volume down some from yesterday, and there were 26 issues up for every 14 down. On the most actives here, Intel gaining 5 7/8 thanks to an upbeat forecast on its third quarter revenues. Dell Computer climbing 2 11/16. Microsoft rising 3.5. The software giant's antitrust trial has been postponed to mid-October from September 23rd. Cisco Systems rising 4 5/16, and Oracle climbing 3 3/8. Received quite a bit of fanfare today on its better-than-expected first quarter results. No change in Yahoo. WorldCom rose 1 7/16. Amgen jumping 1.5. Ascent Communications advancing 3 5/16, and Amazon.com continuing to head down, down 3 9/16 today. Highlighting a few of the big movers, Pacific America Money Center rising 2 3/8 after accepting a cash and stock buyout offer from Fremont General. Georgia-based specialty retailer Freedman's pulling back 2. Its CEO resigned today, and Template Software tumbling 1 3/16. The company predicting third quarter earnings will be nowhere near its levels of a year ago. On the American exchange, the composite index gaining nearly 7 points for the week, up 10.5. Volume just a little bit above yesterday, and 31 issues up for every 24 down. On the most actives, the S&P depository receipts finishing up 4 9/16, and 2 of the weaker issues here, Care Matrix ending down 1 13/16. Couldn't find any news there. And Hemispherics Biopharma, which fell 1 1/4, and again, no news. That's the Wall Street Roundup.
On Monday, a closer look at the financial turmoil on foreign markets. Northwest Airlines will be back in business starting on Sunday now that it has a tentative settlement with its pilots. But that 2-week strike came with a high price. The airline revised its earnings outlook today to include losses for the third and fourth quarters of 1998 and for the year. But still, the stock rose 2 1/8 to 27 7/8.
And Mickey Mouse has come down with the Asian flu. Disney says fourth quarter earnings will be 15 to 16 cents per share compared to 19 cents a share for the same period a year ago. Disney blames Asia and weakness in its consumer products division, but total 1998 earnings are expected to be higher still than last year. The news came out after the close. Disney shares lost 1 1/4 to 25 13/16.
Looking at our Bridge News Watch of events for next week, Tuesday, August retail sales come out. On Wednesday, Fed Chairman Greenspan and Treasury Secretary Rubin testified before the House Banking Committee on the global economic crisis. And Thursday, the Consumer Price Index for August.
Our market monitor guest this week is Howard Ward, portfolio manager for the Gabelli Growth Fund. He's been running the fund, which buys large cap stocks, for a little more than 3.5 years, and he joins us now from our New York studios. And Howard, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff. It's my pleasure.
Let me ask you first what you think the Wall Street reaction will be come Monday, come next week, once it's had a chance to peruse this Ken Starr report, which came out today.
Well, there's lots of juicy information in the Starr report, and I think we have to segregate the report into 2 parts. There's the behavior element that deals with morals and whether or not the president's behavior is acting presidential. But there's also the more difficult area, which is the legal challenge. Did the president commit acts that could be construed as illegal, and should he be taken from office or removed from office because of that? That will be up to the Congress to decide. The president has not been acting terribly presidential of late. I don't think it looks good for the president, and maybe it'd be best for the country if we just moved on.
But what about the Wall Street reaction then? You think that Wall Street has pretty much discounted at least the Star report for now?
Well, it's tough to say on a day-to-day basis, but I think the Clinton factor, as it is, will not be the overriding influence on stock prices over the balance of this year. None of the companies that we invest in have Clinton-dependent earnings, and it's the earnings factor that is even more important.
The market's down roughly 18%. Do you think we've seen pretty much the bottom for now, especially with today's rally?
I think the market's a pretty compelling value, given the fact that interest rates are historically low. And yes, the major averages, like the S&P 500 and Dow Jones average, are down about 18%. But a number of underlying stocks have done far worse than that. And the smaller cap end of the spectrum, the averages are down about 30%. So we've done enough damage. I think the speculation that was so frothy in this market several months ago has suffered quite a bit. And consequently, I think the bubble has been burst. The hedge funds have been liquidating. And I think it's a time for investors to step up to the plate and take advantage of some real fire sales that are out there.
Let me ask you quickly about the Fed as well. Goldman Sachs came out today and said they believe they'll see a Fed easing by next spring. Are you one of those on Wall Street who also believes we'll see a Fed easing relatively soon?
Absolutely. I think sooner than that. I think Chairman Greenspan needs to declare victory in his war against inflation. Inflation is gone. He has also, as we mentioned earlier, burst that speculative bubble in the stock market. The commodity markets and the bond markets are now becoming concerned about global recession. It's time for Chairman Greenspan to now go just the opposite direction and attack what is becoming a growing concern about deflation. We cannot afford to let deflationary psychology take over, because it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Now, with that in mind, what kind of stocks are you buying these days? And as I understand it, you've sort of shifted your focus from multinational stocks, if I could put it that way, to more domestic growth stocks.
Well, there still are some multinationals that we like, but the more purely domestic companies we think offer the best